Hello, my name's Olurotimi Osha. I'd like to talk about American presidents, and of course, I get into discussing American history and how our presidents, most of them who were lawyers, got to shape our legal system. I draw attention as well to call of law violations, that's 18 USC section 241 and 242, deprivation of rights violations that I'm experienced in the malicious bad faith prosecution superintended by a corrupt judge in Montgomery County, Maryland, who is apparently running a racket in Montgomery County Circuit Court. There's entrenched corruption in those courts. That's my experience. And it's superintended right now by Judge James Bonifant. Um, you know, as I discuss, this situation again, this is not legal advice. This is my personal situation that I'm discussing. Um, this case has been going, the malicious, futile prosecution has been going on for 3 years now. It's intended to obstruct justice, and I've done a number of videos on it. The thing is, if you take a look at my profile, I've been very busy in terms of my academics and my professional life. But this malicious prosecution has sort of you know made me unable to do the work that I was engaged in, or do what it is that I would normally do, because this is a risk of my life, my liberty, and my property, and I'm fighting the state to keep these liberties. In fact, I was wrongfully jailed without trial. I haven't had a trial, and because there's been an abusive process by corruption and judicial misconduct of Judge James Bonifant. We typically revere our judges in America, and remember, they don't have an army, but they interpret our laws, and they're supposed to uphold our Constitution and our rights, our liberties, and as in addition to supporting the functions of the executive, right, of the executive arms of government, whether it's federal or state, but they protect our liberties. The judges are there as a balance, interpreting the laws, making sure that the Constitution is upheld. They're not supposed to violate it, and so they're normally people of integrity, character, and decency. They're not supposed to be, exploiting, the judicial system or their office for personal benefit, or for bias, or to advance their malice or their bias or their prejudices. However, that's what Judge James Bonifant has been doing for the past 3 years. So while I don't have, a choice, because, initially he'd placed me under house arrest for over a year with a GPS, still expressly barred me from working, which he has no right to do, right? I'm innocent until proven guilty. I still have my liberties, but he did that in any event. He you know, uh, at some point, he locked me up for about 15 months, locked me up um, in in jail wrongfully for about 9 months in aggregate, and he's done. I've done 6 months in a mental health hospital under a wrongful involuntary commitment. Obviously, eventually, those two hospitals he sent me to at two different times, right? Two different times. At both times, they told him, wrote him, and said, no, I do not have a mental illness. Olurotimi does not have a mental illness. He never gave me any medication, and they told him I don't have a mental illness. So on the second, I mean, he stopped it for now. He stopped those tricks. But but the thing is, even before that, my family had told him that no, Olurotimi, I don't have that. Me, their son, I don't have a mental illness. And I'm a middle-aged man, right? How am I going to develop something at my age, without my family knowing or getting involved in? The state can't just take me and violate my rights of privacy, my rights of family life, and things like that, because that's what Judge Bonifant has been doing, and using the pretext that, well, there's a charge against me. It's a charge. It's actually a malicious charge. It's a bogus charge that should never have come about. But the reason I'm also that I was saying I've been doing this is one, I have no option, right? I'm not going to waste my time and mope, right? I decided that, wow, let me use all my Greek learning, what my 5 university degrees, all the things that I've done, my law degree, right? Again, I'm not licensed to practice law, but I hold a doctor of law degree. That's a Juris Doctor. Juris Doctor is Latin. It means teacher of the law or teacher of legal knowledge, right? So I decided let me use that opportunity and share that, and while I also address, um, the injustice in the Montgomery County and Maryland criminal justice system. I'm sure I'm not an isolated case. And in fact, from my investigation, I also used the opportunity to do investigations while in jail, while in the hospital. I found out, how did people get into jail or in the hospital? How did the criminal justice system of Maryland, how did it ensnare them? And I learned a lot, and I noted it, and I saw that there's a lot of criminal stuff and collusion that's going on by corrupt judges like Judge James Bonifant. In fact, I met somebody else that he'd wrongfully committed that I saw that was there for over 8 years, destroyed his life. He's a Spanish guy. He's an American citizen who was born here. He's a Spanish guy, intelligent guy, calm. But Judge James Bonifant destroyed this youth's life at the age of 21. He has never had a trial. And that is one of the things that corrupt racist judges like Judge James Bonifant use in Montgomery County. If under, their rights we have as Americans, we're accused of a crime, right? Our Sixth Amendment right says we get a chance, right, to know our charges, to face our accusers and defend ourselves in courts, right? But Judge Bonifant violates this when he maliciously falsifies records in collusion with corrupt psychologists and psychiatrists in Maryland's Department of Health, including one Dr. Julie Smith. She's a state psychologist. They collude and they falsify records and wrongfully commit defendants. They have all these, they falsify records, fabricate evidence, and they violate the constitutional rights of Americans, right? As James Madison said, the First Amendment protects our rights of bodily autonomy, our rights of conscience, our rights of, our identity, who we are, right? And James Madison, who authored the Bill of Rights, which protects our liberties, right, against, government intrusion, because that's government intrusion when they take you to wrongfully and take you to a psychiatrist to work on your mind. James Madison said, conscience is the most sacred of all property, and that's what protects. It's protected by the First Amendment. Conscience is what's in your mind, right? That's your identity. And the Montgomery County, Maryland, and Maryland courts and corrupt judges like Judge James Bonifant, pivoting on racial animus and xenophobia, they violate that conscience, that identity that's protected by our First Amendment. It's the First Amendment that also protects our right of religion, our rights of, our freedom of opinion, our conscience, and our beliefs, right? And that's part of what protects our bodily autonomy and our privacy rights. And they violate this through fraud. So there's a scam in Maryland, right? And I'm seeing this in a judge like how a judge like Judge James Bonifant perpetrates this scam. He's part of this scam. Fortunately for me, I'm trained in this. On the day I was swatted, right? My job was as an auditor in the Department of the Navy, actually doing forensic auditing in a classified area. And the government, I love this country. There's racism in this country. This is Black History Month. This is February, but there is racism in this country, and I'm seeing it. I used to wake up all the time saying, "Thank God for America," and post it on my Facebook. And I'm sure there are people who are seeing it, and they were probably angry that I've probably not seen the injustice and the racism in the criminal justice system in a state like Maryland that I'm experiencing now, that they're corrupt and racist judges like Judge James Bonifant. I filed numerous judicial complaints against him, but there's tokenism. So until we put it out there and everybody puts it in the media scrutinizes him. The media has ignored it because he's supposed to be this paragon of virtue. He's part of all these associations, and he's this tower that that can do no wrong. That's how the society sees him. You know, Again, this is America. We have checks and balances, and there's no human being. We don't give away our freedoms, our authority, our consent for anybody to dictate or to lord it over us. We don't have kings in America. That's why we have checks and balances. We separate their powers, right? Amongst our organs of government and our leaders, right? As that saying goes, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we are self-governing. We don't give away our freedoms or liberties to any judge to be king over us, right? We did away with kings. We don't want kings in America. So King James Bonifant, that won't work, right? One day his day will come. He should be criminally prosecuted for his corruption in Montgomery County, Maryland. He's perverted justice. And if this is what I'm going to use my skills for, I'm actually trained in this, right? It's astonishing because I received all of this training prior to this, right? I wasn't, I did accounting, right? I have an MBA in accounting. I've been a banker, so I'm trained in all this stuff. But subsequently, when I got in the federal government, right, the government trained me um, in you know, conducting fraud, things like that. Just, I mean, not conducting fraud, investigating fraud, in examining fraud, finding how to catch fraud and things like that. As an auditor, not conducting fraud, conducting, knowing how to conduct like forensic investigations, forensic auditing. And it's interesting, I also took forensic science at George Washington University Law School. And my professor was actually former head of the director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. That's ATF, which Elliot Ness had been a part of. That was what took down Al Capone. So my professor's name was Professor Kenneth Melson. So that was a very interesting class. Another professor I had was uh, Professor Dr. Whedon. Dr. Whedon had a medical degree. He has a doctor's degree, medical doctor, and he also has a JD, law degree. That's a lot of education, right? I was planning on doing that until stuff happened. I was planning on doing that because before I went to law school, I was on my way to med school. But hey, I still have the pre med. I learned all the pre med and stuff, so that was fair enough. And and they brought in people from the CIA, the FBI, the U.S. Postal Office to come and train us. And then my experience in the government again, I've been trained. I was in school. The United States federal government basically sent me to school again in my job. That I was just taking courses every day, right? That I was being trained. There was NYPD, veterans trained me. So in catching, detecting fraud, and so it's interesting that I'm seeing the corruption, the fraud. I'm trained to catch the fraud of Judge James Bonifant, and I'm a lawyer, and I can see this guy is a criminal. He's a crook, and he's wearing a judge's robe. I respect judges because I'm trained to respect judges. I respect people generally, but the thing is, um, we have public corruption, and it's being masked. It's been covered up, and even though there's this, uh, it's been reported to the Department of Justice, the FBI, and everybody knows. The hospitals that I went to, they said it that Judge Bonifant has abused his power for taking me there twice. They were so apologetic. They said it that this is injustice. They spoke with my pastor. Everybody like my pastors, they would calm me down. Like, don't worry. When I got into one of them, when I was taken into one of those hospitals, the first thing I did was I called the FBI. So they knew, they already knew. The FBI said, calm down. Everybody knows, all the cops, everybody there was apologizing to me. You don't belong here. And they knew, and they wrote it down. But this wicked, evil, racist judge, corrupt judge, did it more than once. And he was contemplating doing it again. this week. So you see, it's a racket, and I saw people who shouldn't have been in the psychiatric hospital. I saw people there, so it's not just me. And I've been doing these videos, and many people, a lot of my classmates in law school, they see them, they ignore them, they just want to carry on with their lives, and that's all well and good. I remember um, a quote that I learned from a German. It's very famous. Everybody knows it. But I got into it because I was also a Holocaust study fellow at at the Institute for Israel and Jewish Studies at Columbia University. And so, but everybody knows this quote. It's kind of famous, and it's from the Nazi era. How the Nazis, they used the law and just criminalized being a Jew, right? And it was an act of injustice. It was inhumanity. It was inhumane. And this is what Judge Bonifant is doing. And some of the racist judges, there are judges that are racist. That's a reality. And we shouldn't try and sugarcoat it, because that's one of the biggest injustices. Justice, the purpose of the law is to preserve our humanity as well. And there was a time black people were criminalized, were just slaves. That was they were chattel slaves, chattel slave, they were chattel back then, prior to the Civil War. And you know right now what's going on is I was in one of these hospitals and wrongfully involuntary committed by Judge Bonifant, again on pretext of being incompetent to stand trial. And this was the opinion of some of the Black American guys that were there. They said, "Look, this is the new slavery," and it's even sort of worse because one, it's your mind. They've created a system where nobody has to listen to you, right? It's like you're saying something and they're just gaslighting you. They say, "No, no, 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 you can't talk. You're somebody who's, you're crazy. We don't really, what you say doesn't matter. We can lock you up because you're still locked up. You don't get your freedom. You're in a hospital. Yeah, cool. They give you 3 square meals, give you lots of food. Look, you wear your clothes. They give you nice clothes. They have a mall. These places are actually very nice. They're nice, but they're like a business, right? So they have malls. They have all sorts of stuff. But if you're there because of a crime, you're still not free, right? You still don't have your liberty because yeah, you walk around, nobody locks you. It's not like you're locked in your cell the way it is in jail. But the thing is, even like a person like me, I shouldn't have been locked up because there's a 14th Amendment due process of law that you know constitutional right that protects me, that you can't take away my liberty, my liberty, or my property without due process of law, right? And Judge Bonifant violates this due process, and this is what's been happening. And I was going to talk about people who don't pay attention to injustices of our judicial system. uh, uh, you know Montgomery County, Maryland is just a small part of it. And but the thing is, uh, uh, it can one day happen to you or somebody that's your loved one. And this is Martin Niemöller's quote. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not say anything, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I said nothing because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I said nothing because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. So one day it might be you, it might be somebody, your loved one. And I see a lot of black people from my school, from George Washington University Law School. I've seen them, but it, this also gave me a lot of wisdom. I started learning many people who smile with you, who are nice, who are whatever, they don't, they're envious or they're jealous or they're terrible. You see how terrible people really are. There was somebody from, I remember there was this female. She's actually Nigerian and she was in law school with me. I remember the first day we met, and this is not to personalize stuff because I'm not somebody who's like petty. I really over rely on people. I don't because my the I have a strong faith system, belief in God. But and so no one can harm me. Like this stuff that I'm going through, it's because God ordained, God wanted it to happen, right? And nothing evil will, I won't be overwhelmed, right? Because of my faith in God. God, I'm not the sort of person that thinks, oh no, I'm going to. I guess that's part of what's shocking them that I've not been depressed. They had psychologists in the jail, and this guy was like so shocked. He was like, "Man, I can't be broken." He's like, "This judge, it's not personal. He's just trying to break you. I see you can't be broken, and it's my faith in God." But there was this person I remember when we just got into law school. She was a Nigerian American, and I had empathy for her. I'm the sort of person who has empathy because she had nowhere to stay and she had just come all the way from Florida. She was looking for a place. And I remember I took it upon myself and started asking people, right, for to help her. When she said she was looking for an internship, right, she wanted to go to Nigeria and do an internship. I remember that I introduced her personally to one of the most prestigious law families, one of the wealthiest families in Nigeria. My good friend, I've known him since our parents, our fathers knew each other, right? And I knew him. He comes from one of the wealthiest, most important families in law. He's in fact his uncle is Rotimi Williams. His late grand uncle, right? That Rotimi. If you say Rotimi Williams in Nigeria, everybody knows this person. I introduced this this lady to the guy, and he could have done it, and he went all the way to the park because it's his family. The family that they own the about the most prestigious law firm. And like okay, sure. And so, but this person, I remember she's there and I just saw the callousness, and so when America, there's something I like about America, the participants, the collective manner that people are concerned. You can see the raids, see the white people that have died, the United States citizens that have died because of the ICE raids against illegal, undocumented immigrants, right? You see, they're showing concern for others' plight. That's how America is. And a lot of immigrants, especially many newborn, new generation immigrants, maybe it's a problem with the millennial culture. And many people like disdain the millennials and things like that, that those people, I don't know. But this person, I came to see a lot of people are just jaded. And that was something somebody in my class once told me. And it was an Asian American guy. He was a I mean, he was in law school with me, and I remember he was trying to explain the the mass shootings in schools, and he was saying that look, there's a generation of Americans, right? They were drugged with these same antidepressants. They started medicating them. And what those antidepressants do is it deadens your ability to be sensitive. And I realized over half of my class, I was surprised, they struggled with mental illness. So they're like zombies. They're unthinking, right? Anything that they're doing, blah, 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 but, they're very, very conceited. And so they just want, like to be like, to show off. They like to show off that, oh, I'm doing great and all that. They just want people to, it's that culture that everybody wants an award. Everybody wants to say, oh, they're a star. It's a very narcissistic generation, right? Americans are generally narcissistic, right? They'd be delusional not to say that they're not narcissistic, right? Think about social media. Think about Hollywood. Americans are generally narcissistic, and I've wondered why narcissism is a buzzword for Americans today. They're like, oh, everybody says, oh, they just throw it away. They say, oh, that person's narcissistic. That person's a narcissist. That person's a narcissist. I'm like, have you gone and diagnosed them and have you thought about yourself? It's just they just bandy it away. Narcissism permeates the culture. If you're not a narcissist in America now, then you're an outlier, right? So stop calling people narcissistic because that's what they just generally say. So this person was telling me that this is a jaded culture. There's a certain generation that's jaded because they grew up on being medicated with with antipsychotics, and therefore they can't feel, they don't have emotion, right? And so when they go and kill their classmates and people randomly. It's because they can't feel it's the medication. That's what this person told me. And I thought about it because I don't use medication. I don't know what, how people are. So hey, maybe that's why this person that maybe she uses medication, and maybe that's maybe that's why she's so jaded. I don't know, but that's been my experience. But today, what I want to talk about is how Judge Bonifant has coerced attorney misconduct. Right, he's interfered with the effective assistance of counsel, and that's a violation of the Sixth Amendment. Remember, I talked about how the Declaration of Independence was very important, and the uh, the the abuse of the king. One of the grievances that our third president, Thomas Jefferson, pointed out was that the king had obstructed the administration of justice, right? And also important, he complained about the mock trials. He complained about how the judiciary was not independent because they depended on him for their salaries and and on his will. So you see, in the Bill of Rights, it was enshrined. Uh, Protections of the rights of the accused were enshrined. So you have the Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the Seventh and the Eighth Amendment. Again, Seventh is it's a civil case, right? It deals with the federal civil cases, right? But the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth. So today I'm going to be talking about the Sixth Amendment because that's what has the right to have the assistance of counsel, effective assistance of counsel. And so part of what Judge Bonifant has been trying to do is to coerce me to accept a plea deal, right? For me to just say I'm guilty and let it go, right? Let it go because it's police misconduct, and I'm not going to do that, right? So I haven't had a trial, and it's been 3 years, and so he's been inducing these false incompetency orders, right? And because the idea is that any attorney I have, right? The first attorney I had was high, I first used a public defender. That was no good, right? Public defenders, they're paid for by the attorney general, and I'm just learning this now. The public defender has absolute, their loyalty is to their client, the defendant. And in Montgomery County, Maryland, unfortunately, the courts, judges like Bonifant, the state attorney, they are able to co-opt the public defender's office to sell their clients out. That's what's going on in Montgomery County, Maryland. The public defender's office is selling out people in Montgomery County, and maybe that's why they have what 90 over. They said they have a very high conviction rate. Is it over 90%, 97 or something? It's atrociously high, and so they charge you with a crime. You're as good as toast. But the thing is, I'm trained as a lawyer, and that's just part of what I was talking about. I'm not licensed to practice, but I'm trained as a lawyer. I did pretty well in criminal law. I liked criminal law as a course. In fact, I also went to this school in Italy, Bocconi University, where I was top of the class in criminal law, and I really, really paid attention. So it's interesting. Again, I'm using my time, making sure that as this judge wants to waste my life, right? Well, because he's taken 3 years of my life now. This is a very important part of my life. As he wants to waste it, I decided, no, I'm going to keep reading. So I was lucky while I was being wrongfully detained. I read about 100 books, very important books, not light books. That was where I was reading all these Hummer, the president's memoirs of Ulysses Grant. I was reading, so I was reading very, very important books. I started learning Latin there, right? And I started learning Latin. And so Bonifant, he was violating my right to speak. Remember, and let me say the Latin part of my right to speak. So it's because it's part of natural justice, because natural justice is enshrined in the Sixth Amendment protections. So audi alteram partem, right? That's the right to be heard. So he's denied it for a whole year. He denied it because he coerced an attorney. But the thing is, I would learn that this attorney was part of the racket. His name's Steve Mercer. He had initially been, in the public defender's office but eventually the guy who filed the perjured emergency evaluation petition hired him, and then so he became sort of a nominal attorney for me. His objective was to coerce me to take a wrongful plea deal. In fact, initially he was asking me to take an insanity plea. I'm not insane. That wasn't what happened. So they fabricated evidence. Eventually, when he saw the evidence, because initially they filed bogus charges, completely bogus charges. The cops who came to my home without an arrest warrant did not give me notice, falsely imprisoned me, and all that stuff. Everything they did was illegal. So the objective was that after they gaslighted me, to be able to hide and destroy the evidence of the abuses, the things they did to me. That was their objective. And so to make it seem like this guy was just going crazy, and so we had to tase him, we had to shoot him, we did what we had to brutalize him because he was dangerous. That was never the case. And this again, it stems from an obstruction of justice and an abuse starting from the Department of Defense, a whistleblower retaliation act violation of a whistleblower retaliation act by rogue agents of the Department of Defense and Department of the Navy. So they were acting in uh, in conjunction with Montgomery County Police and the State Attorney's Office to violate my constitutional rights. So that's what happened because it's kind of weird. Again, I'm trained in this stuff, right? I have education and training in being able to analyze stuff. So I deal with data, and then you use deduction, right? It's not something that you imagine. So Judge Bonifant and a lot of lawyers, you find that a lot of them come from the humanities background. So they don't have technical skills like I do. They don't go and do analysis. They're not rigorous in terms of analysis. I'm not saying law is good because we study, we use words again. It's a different form of analysis, but most of them are not very analytical, concrete people. So you see there's a weakness in law because it's, at least in America, they have too many people from the humanities because, lawyers have to read a lot and write a lot. So their rigorous logical thinking, logical analysis is not often the best. I mean, law welcomes everybody. So you see a lot of people who have been in, who have been in these rigorous quantitative and, more analytical fields who go in as well later. So they have a mix of people. But my point is there's a lot of stuff that goes on that there's specious reasoning. There's what's called sophistry in law, and it's passed off for logical reasoning and rigorous analysis when it's really sham. It's sophistry. Uh, being polemical is not necessarily being able to adhere to logical reasoning. Just like I once did a video discussing Common Sense by Thomas Paine. It's very polemical, right? But it's not a rigorously logical. Uh, it doesn't adhere to the canons of logical reasoning. Let me just put it that way. Um, so uh, now let me get into how Judge Bonifant coerced coerced attorney misconduct, and he interfered with the effectiveness of counsel and caused a lot of my attorneys and public defenders to sell out. That's a term, to collude with one another in order to sort of try and sabotage my case. Um, the first time, of course, with I'm going to do Steve Mercer's one later on because it was a private attorney. I'm going to do his later on because in some ways there's some things that he did that he helped. But the thing is, he misrepresenting from the start that, well, I was delusional. I didn't know what was going on. Because, when you're locked up, because I was locked up in jail, so it's only your attorney that can see you from the court when you talk, right? And it's because of attorney-client privilege, nobody can hear. And so the guy was going and lying so they could just fabricate stuff. There's no camera there watching and stuff like that. And your conversation with your attorney is not recorded. So even though I'm lucid, I tell him everything that goes on, the guy it was just like the movies. When I finished, he was like, oh, he's just going to go and tell them that I'm delusional. And he goes, oh, that's, he said something. You sound so convincing. I almost believed you. So that's his own thing to pretend that, oh well, this is how he makes out what I'm saying, even though he's just gaslighting. He's gaslighting, and does it several times. So he goes to colludes with the judge that, okay, he shouldn't let me talk, that I'm delusional. He does all sorts of stuff, but eventually he gets me out, right? Now, eventually, I go to the NAACP and say, look, they told me this guy's not your real attorney. He's just nominal. He's really trying to protect Jide Wari, who's paying him. Fire him, right? And so I fired him, and then I move on to, um, uh, I move on to, I get a public defender, and so a female came. She was a black female. Her name's Desiree Hall, and then she comes, and so she's representing me. She immediately shows up. She shows up November 15, uh, 2023, and then once I fired, what's his name? This other guy, Steve Mercer, because Judge Bonifant wanted me to go and do volunteer to go and do a mental health evaluation. And I said no. They filed false charges against me. I'm going to defend myself. Right? I haven't complained that I have a mental health problem. I haven't complained of that. Maybe that was why they deliberately shot me in the head, right? To say that, well, because they shot me in the head, I now have a mental ailment or something, But the thing is, then they should be paying me. That's the first thing they should do, right? They should be paying me for the damages they've caused, right? The injuries based on a hoax, right? And that's actually a federal offense. I'll do a video on that later on, because that was a hoax call that was made. It was a hoax call, false information. It's a federal crime. Today, we're going to fill false information, and they got a neighbor, fabricated evidence, police falsified reports. So that's what we're dealing with. It's fabricated evidence. So, one can come out, and then we can prove this. I can prove that, okay, this is all fabricated stuff that they've done. And over time, I've been able to do that. So, and now where we are now, that we've been able to demonstrate that I have the evidence to show that, well, GDAY fabricated evidence, that was perjury. The police sergeant, Charles Drengwitz, falsified his report. He's retired now. Several people, Damarcus Coleman. We have the body cam, which shows that his charge statement was an invention for his delusional mind. It was a complete fairy tale. It was just a malicious invention from him. It was libelous, right? He just defamed me. He lied. That's not what the body cam shows. Now, there are other things that we also have to be able to show. That what was the police's role? What did the government do? What the legal action? Because one, they had no arrest warrant, but they came onto my property, right? And then they gaslighted me. They locked me in my apartment. They evacuated my building, spread disinformation, telling my neighbors that I was a criminal who had escaped and was holding a woman hostage, which was not the case. Fortunately, I don't know, they didn't count on the fact that I had a neighbor on my floor, or they don't care. They're just callous, right? I know they're not rocket scientists, but they're just callous or something. Crude, right? But I had a neighbor who I was close to. I used to talk. I actually knew him when I was in law school. He worked in my law school, and that's the reason why you should normally be nice to people. Every time I went to work out at the gym, he was a custodian, right? He cleaned, right? And this guy, we became buddies. When I was working, I would talk for hours, and GW Law School, it's like one of the posh, a lot of wealthy people go there. But I took time to talk to the Jamaican, to the custodian all the time. We were always talking and everything. He recorded the video of the way they came, and he said there were military guys with rifles. What you see in the body cam, it's cops, it's police officers from Montgomery County Police. So that was part of the gaslighting. So they'd staged the whole scene, right? The military, or whatever, whoever they were, the agents, they'd already come and they'd gaslighted me, locked me in, done all of those things. And the police came and they made it appear like they just arrived, not revealing that they were the ones who locked me in, gaslighted me. So that was an illegal act. It was a violation. It was a very illegal thing that the government did, right? Um, it violated my equal protection rights. It's all it's also false imprisonment. It violates the Fourth Amendment. It's false imprisonment. Very 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 serious violation. So it's again 18 USC 242 section 242 violation, and 42 USC section 983 violation. So I'm supposed to get my chance in court, right? But the process of getting to court, and I now have a public defender, uh, is being compromised. Um, it's been interfered with by Judge James Bonifant. It's been impeded because he's been trying to coerce me to accept this plea deal, an unfavorable plea deal from the state. The objective is to be able to prevent me from eventually being able to bring suit, or maybe the objective is actually to destroy my opportunities in the government. Because of the government, they told me, or somebody who told me that, look, because I that was the great thing about working for the federal government, U.S. federal government. If you were hired as actually an employee, permanent, whatever career, like um, I was, you have what's called due process rights. The government can't just fire you. They need cause. They can only fire you for cause, and they give you a right it's just part of your, like, those liberties in the 14th Amendment protections. You have it. You can't take it away without your having an opportunity to challenge it and have an appeal that no the and anything they want to do, they have to tell me first. It has to be for cause, and I have the right to defend it. So I didn't get a chance to do that. So I haven't done anything, right? So um, even though I've been obstructed from resuming work, so I'm just like in a limbo status until I resolve this. And so somebody who worked for the federal government, an Asian American guy, very smart, he told me that, look, whatever you do, yeah, it's your job they're trying to take from you. Whatever you do, don't take a plea. Once you do that, right? A guilty plea, any kind of plea, that's it. Then the government can now fire you. Don't take that. I already knew that. I'm a lawyer. The thing is, it's astonishing that these guys think I'm an idiot. I go and read stuff. I research. That's what I was hired to do in the federal government. I go and research stuff. But this Montgomery County court, I don't know. It's it's astonishing. And it's the racism. That's what racism is like. When somebody that's highly trained, you should be able to see from their profile, their background, that, well, they will run circles around you, or they will figure out what you're trying to do. Like they have the knowledge to counter what you're doing, or to be able to out you or whatever. They can't be compromised, but they're doing it anyway. And I think it's because of racism, right? But in any event, so I wasn't going to accept any plea. They've been trying, that's what they've been trying to do for 3 years, still offering me plea deals for 3 years. And of course, I've been saying no. And so that's why the judge calls me rigid, that I'm so rigid. And so his goal was to send me to a psychiatric hospital to make life miserable for me, or to maybe they could give me forced treatment, right? Just like they do in the USSR. So that's a judge we have. In the USSR, they'd send you to not just the gulags, right? Dissidents under the during the time of Stalin. Um, if you were a dissident, the government, the state would just lock you up in a psychiatric hospital, and they'll force treat you until you accept state propaganda. Same thing with, like the Nazi era, and that's what Judge James Bonifant was abusing his office to try and do to me, right? That my rigidity, that's not rigidity. That's protected in my First Amendment rights, my rights of autonomy, right? We're self-governing. The First Amendment protects our ability, our rights to self-govern. My identity, I'm a self-governing person. I'm autonomous. My rights of autonomy. And this judge is saying that, well, and I'm trained. in the law to understand. But he tries to send me to a psychiatric hospital to be less rigid, to be coerced and take an unfavorable plea bargain of guilty when I'm not guilty, when I know what happened. And so his also objective is to discredit my own narrative, what I said. Because when I came out, I wrote a motion to dismiss. I stated my narratives, and he just was looking at it like, this is so bizarre. How are you bizarre? What is the bizarre? And then, he said I should go and do a mental health evaluation. And of course, they have the woman who falsifies, who fabricates, that's Dr. Julie Smith, the state psychologist. So she fabricates, writes an invention. When my mother's there, my family, they recorded it. They had her say he has no mental illness. And then she fabricates it. And also, what she did, because she was asking about my family background, my medical history, and my mom was telling her this guy doesn't have any stuff or whatever. And then she talks about how I talk in a funny way. She's a racist woman, from the South, racist white woman from the South. She said, that I was talking in a certain way. And I've been wondering, are Africans or new immigrants, are we in trouble? Uh, we talk with an accent, we talk in a different way, and we have a different idiosyncrasy. And that's why I know psychiatry is fake, at least psychiatry in America. You don't understand people's where if you're going to be diagnosing people's idiosyncrasies or their accents as a funny way of talking, and then you're going to say they're mentally ill because of that. That's the crazy stuff that this racist crooked Julie Smith was trying to do, right? And so my mom, she did something else that was different, because in jail, because I saw her, she'd actually interviewed one of she'd given this competency evaluation to one of my cellmates at one time, a Spanish guy, and he passed it. And I coached this guy. It's just 5 questions in jail that they ask you, like who's a judge, who's your. And if you can get 4 out of 5, you're good. You got 4 out of 5. I coached this guy. And me, I can't pass it. Okay, every time at least I pass it. Make it more extensive when you go to the hospital. It's more rigorous. But in the jail, when she gives it, it's easier. So it violates the equal protection of the law. So that's something else, another discriminatory thing, illegal thing, unconstitutional thing that Montgomery County is doing, because it doesn't set the same economic. It doesn't give the same psychological or competency evaluation to all inmates. It varies it. So she used a different standard for me. She didn't give me those 5 questions. She never asked me any question regarding court procedure or anything. She was just asking me and my mother to talk about my uh, my my medical history, my family, all those things. So that violates my constitutional right, and it was supposed to be court ordered. So eventually, my family, I mean, uh, from the hospital, the places that he sent me, they're like, man, you have a civil suit against these people. My attorney told me, my public defender. But anyway, let me continue about how he was co-opting and coercing my attorneys to commit attorney misconduct and sell out and sabotage my case. So when she messed up, she asked me to go, go and do uh, an evaluation with, as an outpatient. And I said no. My family, my mom, we were surprised that what she wrote is a fraudulent stuff. We don't agree, right? Because then again, you require consent. The judge can order something. The only reason he's ordering stuff is because uh, ostensibly, there are charges against you. So the state of Maryland, and these are things we need to be challenging. So the state of Maryland, then a judge can order these competency evaluations, because one, his decisions have to really be based on reasonable grounds, and they have to be logical. They have to, he has to be able to explain them. But these things he's been doing, he's been using fraud, fabrications to ask me to do a competency evaluation. I have a law degree. I'm rational. I'm highly educated. Why would he assume that I don't know what's going on, because they've been committing fraud, right? Him and the attorney that they're in cahoots with, that's Steve Mercer, and the other people, and the public defender's office that they're acting in cahoots with, right? So eventually, this female comes in, this lady, a young lady, um, Her name's Desiree Hall. She was a very young black woman, and he sort of dismisses her a lot. So she told me what do I want her to do because she just came on board, and so I told her that. Um, so at that time, my aunt, I have an aunt who in Maryland who was a psychiatrist, and she had already done an exam, written an examination to the judge that no, this guy has no mental illness. She's my aunt. She talks to me. She doesn't say anything. And no, but the judge said, well, that she's my family. She's just trying to help me. Under Maryland law, I can see anybody, right? It's because that's your zone of privacy rights. I can see anybody. I can refuse to see anyone. And I'm not pleading. I'm not using an insanity defense. If I were using in the charge, if I were using an insanity defense or something, then the state has a right to look into my mental status. They can do that, right? But I'm not. That's not what I'm using. I was using. Steve Mercer was trying to use that. I said no, right? The client still has to agree. And so this judge was trying to coerce it, and these were things I didn't know. So the guy Steve Mercer, that was first of all, he was selling out a strategy because he was now working in collusion with the state, and that's to sabotage my case and trying to just coerce me to take this plea bargain right away. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that, right? I'm not going to take any plea deals because this is a fabrication. I was assaulted in my home. I wasn't committing any crime. I was alone. And you can see I was set up by the Navy, by the DOD, because, I saw what happened. All my computer, the police didn't have the power to hack all my computer devices. And that's a federal crime, right? Cyber stalking is a federal crime. They eventually did fraud on my account, withdrew money from my bank account. So the government is committing its own fraud. The government is committing its own, committing fraud itself, and this is terrible. So at the time I said no. So my aunt was going to now get when Judge Bonifant said he didn't want her evaluation because she's my relative. That's a violation of my constitutional rights because I can have anybody, as a psychiatrist, right? But initially I was just complying, but he's trying to coerce me because he was like saying he wanted to make sure I'm competent to stand trial, but I'm unwilling. So my mom, my family was there. My goal was to prove that Jide Warrior, that the emergency evaluation petition, what he wrote, was a fabrication, was a fraud. So I was being cooperative. That was my goal, to show it was a fabrication. My mom had already said it's a fabrication. My mom eventually, she went to court, right, to demonstrate. I have my medical record that this guy fabricated that emergency evaluation petition, right? Because the EAP is only meant to be used for somebody who has a mental illness before already. So it was something. It should have been vacated immediately because they had no history, right? He didn't put my age intentionally, right? So he did all these fraud, and the judge who signed off on it was an incompetent judge. Her name's Judge BBM Berry, right? An incompetent judge. She may have known Jide Iwari or known his kids because she graduated from Howard University, and Jide Iwari was a professor at Howard University for 40 years. He's probably still there. His daughter also graduated from Howard Law School. So, it's Montgomery County. They've all been at Montgomery County for a long time. So, they might have known each other. I don't know. Judge James Bonifant might know Jide Iwari, and the family might be close, and that's why he's so invested in this. Or he's also very close to the family of Jamie A. Simon and Kirsten Risbeck, whom I had filed a DOD, an IG complaint for their moral turpitude in the federal government, right? They committed perjury and fraud in the federal government, and so he was probably trying to also protect their careers, and they got Jide Iwari, right, who, to be able to go and fabricate this thing. So this public defender, the new one, her name's Desiree Hall. She says, "What is it that she can do for me?" But my aunt was going to get me a psychiatrist because she was she was a psychiatrist at her hospital. She was going to get me somebody who would do it in a formal way. She was getting ready to do that. Then this person came to me, the public defender. She calls me, and of course they had already co-opted her, but I didn't know. And she said, "Hey, that she could get me somebody, a psychiatrist, to counter what Dr. The Julie Smith did, the fabrication she wrote. And so she was going to counter it. She was going to challenge it because you have a right to dispute everything, to challenge something. So she said why I should use the psychiatrist or psychologist that they have, and it's paid for by the state. That why do I want to waste my money? Because I told her like, my aunt's getting me someone to do it. She said, why do you want to waste your money? So I thought, okay, fine. I trusted her. She was a black female. I thought she's probably doing this as an advocate for black people, right? But of course, I've also learned that black Americans don't think we Africans are black like them, especially many of those from, she's from South Carolina. So they don't see us the same. I came to learn from all of this because she was throwing me under the bus. She was a Judas. She was, so eventually she changed, but at some point, again, she's new. You're working in an office, and if your public defender's office is already corrupt, they're already crooked, right? They are already co-opted by the state attorney's office, and a venal judge, controls them, you know, and they go along, and that's so she just goes with the grain, when she doesn't go against the grain, when she starts off, she's new then, she's a young lady, she's just establishing her career, but it's unfortunate when the practice of law is fundamentally unethical, right? Something that's supposed to be upholding the rule of law, and the public defender's office is corrupted, right? From the experience I've had. So she tells me that, okay, they have somebody who will come. And I said, fine. She told me the guy's name. And I said, fine. So the guy reaches out to me. He said they're paying for it. He was a private person. It was a private practice. He wasn't the state. That was what she was telling me. She said, he's not the state. He's private. But, he lied. I ended up finding out that he just lied to me. So I insisted because my mom said, no, but you're not going to do any evaluation without her being present, because my mom has never taken me to psychiatrists. My mom has never given me medication for mental illness, nothing like that. And I'm a grown man, but now I didn't have my freedom, right? I was wearing GPS. I was under house arrest. So my mom said she has to be in everything. So my mom, all the way from Nigeria, she was appearing via Zoom. So she appeared via Zoom with this woman, with a woman who fabricated a report, but she didn't know my family had recorded it, right? So that one, we already have a malpractice suit against her that's pending, and a complaint that's against her. She'll never, by God's grace, she'll never practice psychology again, or the rest of her descendants, they'll be paying money, right? for the malpractice that she did. But then there was somebody else again. So this guy, Dr. Michael Mintz, he now contacts me. He said, okay, he wants to interview us for over three, because I said, no, my family has to be there here. So he agreed. So he said he wants to do it for over 3 days. I said, fine. And then, he said I should give him some friends he can interview as well separately. I said, fine. So, of course, I had to give him sign a consent form, because in the U.S., in Maryland, you don't have, it's your right, you can't be coerced to speak with a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You can't be coerced to go and see them. You go there voluntarily, right? So this person was ostensibly in private practice. That was what he was saying. So I signed a consent, but I modified the consent. So the consent was saying that, okay, that he would give the contents to Desiree Hall. I looked at it, I modified it first. I said, no, Desiree Hall has to give the contents to me first, because I'm the one who's the client. He can't give it to her without my consent. So I modified it saying, no, I have to see the contents first, and I'm the one who's going to authorize it and give it to Desiree Hall, right? And it's the consent form. So he violated that. That was something. So I filed a malpractice complaint against him as well already. So he violated that, and then he did his fabrication. So he spoke with my mom, my brother, they were present. And at the time, my mom's youngest sister died. And and my aunt, who's a psychiatrist, her mother died. So you see, people in my family have been passing away during this malicious prosecution. So, and I haven't had the freedom to go and visit, to participate, to go and see my family, right? So there've been funerals, there've been things, going on, and this is how the wicked state of Maryland has violated, has tried to divide, destroy my family, but God is bigger than them, right? So that's no problem. God is bigger than them. So um, I'm not bothered. So in any event, this guy wanted to talk to everybody and all that stuff. So the people he talked to. But eventually, anyway, this guy was such an obnoxious guy. And then the same thing, my family asked him. They said, "Hey, do you see any sign of mental illness in this guy?" Because she wanted to say, she was like, "Look, this is the same routine I've always known. That she's my mother. She doesn't see anything." And, they've been lying to her. And she talked and she said, "I'm still the same." And she doesn't see anything different. And he's never been ill because his life has always been stellar since childhood, right? You're going to ask my friends, one of those kids, yes, I came from a very good home. So I was one of those kids that I went to the best schools from childhood. I was first in my class, right? Without really trying, because I came from a wealthy home. I had a wealthy father. My father was a bank chairman and a bank CEO. So, and I was loved and I was protected, right? And I did very well. Not a, I went to the most competitive secondary school. I started off with being first in my class at some point, and I socialized. I was known. I wasn't one of those people who was moral. No, I got to socialize. Later on, I did whatever I wanted to do. I did okay. There are people who don't do well start off well, right? But I've maintained. I've had that consistency. Like, again, how many degrees I have? I have at least 4 university degrees. I'm Ivy League educated. I've done all. I have a law degree as well, JD. The thing that the judge, the attorney that they're using to hold me, and they think that they can look down on my intellect. They can't, because that level of degree they have, that JD, right? I have it too, and I have more degrees than them. So I don't know why they think um, they can deny me my rights to speak for myself. Your rights, Audi, alterum, partem. Why do they think I don't have that right to make my decisions myself? And it's racism. The rank racism in America, at least in Montgomery County in Maryland. It's a very racist state. Again, they have the worst incarceration rates for black people, black men in America. That's the state of Maryland. And the thing it projects as it's said to be a blue state, but you hear people saying Democrats are the most racist people. It's ironic. They're very, maybe they patronize black people, right? So they want those blacks that they want to be put on the pedestal that they can help the indigent blacks, the criminals, the ghetto people. That's where the Democrats seem to want to. I'm a registered Democrat, but that's where they sort of want to put their focus. You see, even the governor, right? He's gone to all these, a Rhodes Scholar, gone to all this, whatever. But when you go and read his biography, he talks about how he was into crime when he was a kid or something like that. So that's what Democrats. That's sort of what they expect of black people, right? They're dirty, they're solid, they're solid. There's something grimy about black people, and you should just love the black criminal. I'm seeing this from this experience of mine, right? Because this Judge Bonifant, black criminals love him. You see, as he doesn't let me talk. There was a guy I saw in jail, and we were waiting together, and this guy too was wrongly accused, right? He was born in America, but he's Ethiopian, but he was born. I still remember his name, and this guy impressed me. I remember he'd been locked up for 8 months. And Judge Bonifant was one granted him bail. And so many of the criminals who are into drug dealing and everything, they like Bonifant. He lets them out all the time. Several of my there's a kid that 3 times this guy goes, he's a fentanyl addict. Bonifant is always letting him out on bail. He did armed robbery until he kills somebody. But someone like me, I don't do drugs. He locked me up for 15 months. So you see, he likes, so the criminals who do, so it's like they encourage criminality in black people. Those are the one. Then they like him. They're like, oh yeah, he's good. the criminals, the ones who've done violent things, terrible things, they like it. But Bonifant hates someone like me, right? You see, that's the racism of, oh Jesus, oh man. But so I remember this guy. His parents are Ethiopian, but he was born here, and he told me his story. He said the police arrested him, racial profiling. He told me how he was working at the airport, and you know they put him on. They forced him to go on a these the line thing that that somebody they identify you and everything, and the person, the culprit, somebody had robbed a bank, and he said it wasn't him. And they were asking, and immediately they offered him a plea deal. And he told me his whole story. And he said never that it wasn't him. He went to Howard. He didn't graduate. He played basketball or something, But cool guy. But he told me what happened, that when he was a kid, when he was in college, that you know for something minor, he'd taken a plea deal, because he was young. He didn't want his parents to know. And you see that it's very often Montgomery County. They coerce young people, black people. I saw that so often to take plea deals, and it it bites them. It haunts them for the rest of their lives. It destroys them. And so he said that because of this thing has haunted him, he couldn't graduate because of it, right? And it just affects everything. And every time they're always pulling him out. And so now it was something trivial that he took the plea deal. He didn't even go to jail or something, but he made a mistake, and that plea deal has been haunting him because one day they just pulled him out, arrested him, saying that he fit a profile. He said never. He was like he has a little kid, a little baby, and he became hardened, right? He became, because he was like never. He did 8 months. I never imagined that I'd end up doing more months than him. Because in my case, he's been sending me in and out, sending me in and back out because I've refused. No, I'm not going to volunteer to do any evaluation, right? That's my right. So you can force me so he's been doing these fraudulent. So the involuntary commitments have been fraudulent because he's been asking me to go and do it on my own, and I should volunteer. I'm not volunteering to do nothing because I'm not ill, right? You've done this ab initio. There was fraud. That's not going to happen because if at the end I'm going to sue you. Don't worry, right? So this guy, this guy he refused. They offered him a plea deal. He refused. He said, okay, he's going to go to trial. They locked him up for 8 months, no bond. But he was now feeling it because of his daughter. That okay, he doesn't mind being home. But it's like, well, he stayed. And eventually, he was up for a bond review. So he stayed. He said no because he said they offered him a plea deal. He said he's not going to do it because that this is false, and eventually he's going to get out and sue them as well for racial profiling. So he got out. So you see, this thing is common. It happens. Montgomery County, these crooked cops in cahoots with the crooked racist state attorney John McCarthy, right? And crooked judges like Judge James Bonifant, and they file false charges and they coerce plea bargains because they make your life miserable and they coerce you. And then the public defender's office often, they're coerced, they act in collusion. So let me continue with what the public defender did. So the public defender was she got the guy. His name's Dr. Michael Mintz. Dr. Michael Mintz speaks with my friends. I let him talk to 5 of my friends, including my neighbor who saw everything. My neighbor still can't believe that I was the guy that the police came to raid. Because he said, look, he recorded it on his phone that they said a criminal, and it wasn't just the one, 2 of my neighbors I had met, at least 2. They said, and the judge banned me as my bond condition. He banned me from going to live in my apartment, my home. The lease was still in my name. They were still charging me rent. My property was still there, right? So he banned me from going back there, right? Saying that's the crime scene. He was not lying, fabricating things, saying my neighbors don't want me there. They said I'm a bad person. He was defaming me. Which of my neighbors? When did he get this evidence? Now, it's 3 years. I haven't seen the neighbors that said I'm a bad person. None of them, because I was somebody who minded my business, my because of my job, my government job. I was working in the classified area, so I minded my business. I wasn't allowed nothing, nothing at all, right? They had the Ethiopian guy, the illegal alien who can't speak a word of English, went to go and fabricate his a peace order. He was suborned to fabricate a peace order. I'll do another video and talk about that guy. So that guy, the state of Maryland eventually charged him, right, with assault. They charged him, right, because he fabricated a peace order. It was one who Jide Wari came with, and they assaulted me, wanting to kidnap me. Jide Wari saying he wanted to take me to go and see a psychiatrist at my age in my own home. If I want to go and see a psychiatrist, I don't know where to go. I have friends. My aunt's a psychiatrist. If there was so, she didn't say I ever told her that, hey, there's something wrong with me. If there was something wrong with me, I'll tell her. I was talking to her that same month that this thing happened because she's a lawyer. She was a lawyer before she went into psychiatry. She got a law degree from Nigeria, passed the bar, So she's an intelligent woman. So I talked to her. We talked extensively, right? I didn't tell her, she didn't say, she told the judge and wrote him down, hey, this guy didn't say there was anything wrong with him. And I didn't see anything wrong with him. How will Jide Wari now come to my home? He's not my father. We're not even blood related, right? He doesn't know anything about me. I wasn't living in his house. My mom, I'm close to my mom. My siblings are there. Why? I had a girlfriend. I had some people I was, I had friends, people I was, why nobody? I didn't tell anybody. Is this old man? Anyway, the hospital, they said, he probably has dementia, but he's in denial. That's what they said. So it was weird. Um, so it was the neighbor had told the Michael Mintz guy, the Dr. Mintz, that look, he and I, we went out. He took me to a restaurant just before. He still can't believe it was me they came for, because I wasn't even arguing. I was telling him, look. It was me they came to raid. He was like, no, they killed the guy. They said it was a criminal who came into the building. He was holding a woman hostage, because I saw the threat later on. Because they're so stupid. They sent me it was an email blast. They sent me the email as well, but I didn't have it on that day. They had hacked all my computer devices, so I couldn't see it. As part of what panicked me. They hacked all my devices, so cyber stalking hacked everything. I couldn't read my email. I couldn't reach out for help. They hacked my phone. It was crazy what happened. The sophistication, it was the DOD that did it, because that day I was supposed to have something with the DOD, and I have the email. I got them to send me an email first. So, hey, how did I get that email? Right? Man, I don't know. The things some of these people do, they're not as smart as they think they are. I mean, maybe they just wanted to show me, intimidate me, and just show me that they can do it. And that's basically what it is. It's not a matter of being smart. They just wanted to let me know they can violate my rights and they can mess me up, can dehumanize me, right? And that's an abuse of power. Like, that's not what makes America a great nation. I know that in Nigeria, that's what happens. People can easily violate you and you can't do anything about it. In Russia, everybody knows. In China, there are these nations that we call authoritarian. So is that what America is as well? At least Montgomery County, so they're an authoritarian government now, because that's what happened. So the thing is, let's let the whole world do it. There's no need for you to do something and then lie and you're covering it up. That's what I want Montgomery County and the Department of Defense, Department of the Navy. Let us put it out there, right? At least ICE, they're coming out and they're doing their violations. Now, what happened to me, what they did, let every American citizen that's not committing a crime, there's no probable cause, let everybody know that the US government, the Department of Defense, that there's certain people, they're untouched, they are kings, they're above the law, like Jamie A. Simon and her clique, her family, and Kirsten Risberg, and Nefertari McBride, Nathan R. Brown, Kendra Ortiz, all the people that are in their clique, there are people who think there's a deep state or whatever. Let everybody know that James Bonifant, James Bonifant, John McCarthy, they can do it, Robert Sheehan, like those people in the chief of police at that time, the DeMarcus Coleman, that's just their minions, right? Those are just their foot soldiers, they're their pawns. Let the people who have that power, let all Americans know that you can do it. When Donald Trump is saying that, look, he can be brutal, he could be an authoritarian, he doesn't hide what he does. Why is it that these people in Montgomery County, Jamie Raskin, you're not doing anything, right? You're in people's pockets because one, I've written the office, we've done it, and he's just, these are just fraud. They're just frauds. They're not who they are. The Congressman Jamie Raskin, what is really going on? Come out and tell the truth. No media has put this thing out because I've sent it to all the media in Montgomery County, sent it to media CNN, all of those things. These things are just they're just fraud, venal, co-opted mediums and enterprises and agents. That's all they are, right? They're not really working for the people, right? We have an authoritarian, like, you're calling ICE Gestapo. There's Gestapo in Montgomery County criminal justice system. There's Gestapo, Nazism in the court of Judge James Bonifant, right? That's what they are, right? Those are the people. It was a hate crime they executed. They stole my certificate of naturalization. That's who they are, right? So don't hide it. When you want to show you have the balls, you get out and put it out there. Let the whole world know who you are. Stop. You're weak when you're hiding who you are. Just like the KKK, they hide who they are behind sheets. They cover themselves, right? And they're weaklings. Everybody knows they're just they're they're nobody, right? They're non-entities. And Judge Bonifant, he's hiding behind fraud. Let the society, community know, what sort of system we really have, right? Let this whole society, the whole community really know what sort of system we have. But anyway, back to this guy, Dr. Min. So my neighbor, right, that he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that I was the one that was removed, that was attacked, besieged by the he called them military geared people. He said they had rifles, the military, the police, the force that came. And because he said they killed the person. They heard gunshots and they told them that the person was dead. I heard a gunshot. But I'm not dead. I'm alive. On that day, I was wondering, because when they shot me, I thought it was a bullet because of blood. I'd never been tasered. I was like, when I ran back inside, and I was like, what the heck? And I had bullets in my head. How can there be a bullet in my head and I'm still alive? So I ran into the back room and I saw this thing, like a stub. It had a string and I tried to pull it out. I couldn't pull it out. It's like, what? So you can imagine how traumatic that experience was. But in any event, the guy the people I asked ended up talking to this Dr. Mintz. Now, eventually, he did his report, and of course, I'd written that he had to give me a copy first. It turns out, I guess he'd sent back his report maybe by January 16, January 21. He sent it to the public defender. I didn't know. I was still waiting, and I was asking him, when is this thing coming? I didn't bother him. Excuse me. I gave them all the records that they asked for. He even had my transcripts, my degrees, everything. He had all of those things. Yeah, he asked for pictures. He saw all of these things. You saw that, okay, this guy has had a normal life. My resume, everything where I'd worked. He talked to a former co-worker, talked to, different people, my friends, people I've worked with, colleagues. And, this is something that you don't want to spread out because, I know it's malicious, it's false, but you don't want too many people. I'm a private person. You don't want to get people in your business. And that's sort of my family were private, but they've maligned me because if you go check a Maryland case search, you can see my name because and it's fraud. It's the objective is to defame me, make me appear opprobrious to my community, but it's defamatory, right? Eventually, one day I get to sue. But I have to be vindicated first, and they will see the injustice that Montgomery County, Maryland, the Department of Defense, and the Department of the Navy have done to me. That they've done something criminal. It's defamatory. It's against the law because defamation. It's The First Amendment protects us against what's against defamation, libel, and that's what Montgomery County, the state of Maryland, has done. So eventually, I had a job offer. I had this job offer that I'd been waiting for, at the Pentagon. In fact, I had it since I was supposed to start since October, but the judge didn't let me go. So I was asking for a bond review because initially, when I came out, I had money, I had savings in my bank account. The trial was supposed to be originally set for November. So I was waiting for the trial, and then this judge canceled the trial, right, saying I was not competent. And then, so I didn't know because I'd never been found incompetent to stand trial. I didn't know what it meant. They didn't, so we had a right to challenge it. So we challenged it. In fact, the journalist had interviewed me and everything, and so we were waiting. We were going for a bond review because I had run out of funds. I didn't have money, and I was trying to, they had this offer at the Pentagon for me to come. And so on February the 14th, I remember I saw a classmate and I showed her my GPS and I told her, and she worked for the federal government. She's an attorney. She was in my class and she's a black lady. And I told her what was going on. On that day, she gave me her phone number because I just saw her randomly, on the train. And we used to talk because she worked at the gym in my law school. Even though she was in my class, she was in law school, but she worked, I guess, for extra money. So she was somebody I used to talk to when we were in law school. I guess one of the few people. But so it was kind of interesting that we just met on the train, and she gave me this huge hug. I remember, and I was so happy. She's married. She'd gotten married because we were friends on social media as well, and so she looked so happy to see me. And even though I showed her when I showed her the whatever on my leg, that what I'd been going through, she hugged me again, right, and gave me her number. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna get my bond today. This was a good, this was good. It was just good to see a classmate because I'd been under house arrest for so long. I hadn't seen anybody. It was 7 months out of house arrest. Prior to that, I was locked up in jail for over 2 months. And this was just terrible. And I'd just been talking to people over the phone and stuff like that. Fortunately, I had my other friends I was living with friends. So hey, um, so I get to to court. My public defender is late. She was constantly late. She was just rushing, coming very late, and I was there. I'm always on time. And then she now tells me something she never told me. Right now, told me that did she send me Dr. Min's report? I said no, because I was surprised because he was supposed to send it to me first. That was what I wrote, right, in the consent form. He's meant to send it to me before her. So he'd violated our consensual, the agreement. That was my first thinking. So she said, oh, that she wanted to show me. So took me to a room and started reading. So it was late. So those people were waiting. So she came in tardily, and now she was now telling me she wanted to read me what Dr. Mintz wrote, right? So she was now reading it. And she read me a statement from my friend. This friend of mine had said, that's Sharon. I called before she read it. I didn't read it. I said, okay, because I was like finding her suspicious. So because like let Sharon be there. So I called Sharon, put her on speaker, let her hear what this person said. So she said, that Sharon said, that she's concerned that she thinks I should use that they should give me medication to help me and everything. So the guy just fabricated everything. So I asked her, Sharon said, no, where's that from? That she never said that. That those are not words. That she's going to sue whoever said that. So okay, so this doctor now falsified what my friends gave them, and I know my friend. Okay, fabricated, showing that before she already wrote me something, signed it, right? I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant, I'm an auditor. She had already written me stuff, written me their own statements, and signed it. Now this doctor was now claiming that my friend, because he wanted to interview them alone. I was a man. I was like, I trusted him because the pub defender. They're like, oh, don't worry, he's going to do what it is that we want because we're paying him. Right? That was what they told me, that he's going to do what it is that we want because we're paying him. We're trying to get him to do the report that we want. That was what they said. But this guy was now saying, he now lied, fabricated what my friend said. Now said, oh, that I'm dangerous and that I need immediate medical help and I'm going to be a danger to society if I don't go and start taking medication immediately. That's what this guy fabricated. I said no. So I said that's no problem. So she was like, huh? So fabricated what my friends said. You see how crooked. So they have these corrupt psychologists and psychiatrists that are undermining the system, right? So they engage in medical malpractice or professional malpractice to help the courts of Maryland and the state attorney to institutionalize black people, especially marginalized people. And this guy, Dr. Mintz, that was his name. So he fabricated everything. So I said no problem, that because I didn't know what was going on because I was there. The pretext was I was there for bond review because I was no longer living in Montgomery County jurisdiction. I was now living in DC. So I was not within their jurisdiction. I was coming willingly on my own. I never fled anywhere. At some point, the judge had asked for my passport, and I had the previous attorney. The attorney said, "Look, this guy has a six-figure job offer at the Pentagon, very lucrative job offer. He's not going anywhere. It's not a flight risk. He's not running anywhere." I told them that no, you're not going to touch my passport because you guys stole my certificate of naturalization, and that's a felony. And they denied taking. You're not taking my passport for nothing, right? What is it that I've done? So the guy said that this is a misdemeanor. This is not a felony. He didn't kill anybody. This is just a misdemeanor, right? He's not running anywhere, right? So I said no, I'm not even giving away my passport. So when I was now there back in, immediately the judge just said, "I find you dangerous. I find you a danger to society." He said that. So I'm committing you he committed me to a psychiatric hospital. I'm like, what? And they just handcuffed me immediately. But I'm like, what? So then my attorney was now saying, Mr. Osha has a job at the Pentagon. It was like, she was now reading stuff to me. I guess that was her own form of protest that this shouldn't be happening. So it deceived me. From the interaction between my public defender Desiree Hall and the state attorney Thea Zumwalt, uh, she showed she was more familiar with the documents, right, than my public defender Desiree Hall. So I could now see that she'd been co-opted by, she'd been, there was collusion between them, and that was sort of illegal, right? So the judge now, however, now went to lock me up for another 2 months because you have to wait for a bed. They locked me up for 2 months, and then eventually they take me to the hospital. They transported me to another jurisdiction. So on April 26th, I was locked up February the 14th. April 26th, I was transported to, I'd never been to Cambridge. I was taken all the way to, was it Ocean City, near Ocean City, Eastern Shore Hospital Center. I'd never been there in my life. Never been to Ocean City. Here I was with, it's 3 hours away. So it took me away from my jurisdiction. So, and then when I tried to get in touch with my attorney said it's too far, they can't come, and I couldn't contact them. So that's interfering with my ability to have the assistance of effective counsel, right? That's a judge interference. He coerced, he controlled, and got my public defender to sell out. So my attorneys, they were selling out to sabotage me, so they were disloyal because that was not what I wanted. I said, no, I'm not. I dispute this evaluation thing, and she sabotaged it. When you don't, because when they take you to a hospital, psychiatric hospital, that's a crucial stage that you need to be in contact with your attorney regularly. I wasn't able to contact my attorney. I wasn't able to speak with her. So she was incompetent. But the good thing, eventually, the thing is, all those doctors were nice to me. Like the doctors were white people. Not to say white people like me, but white people like, I mean? I went to a predominantly white school in Alabama. I didn't have any problem with them. The places I've worked in, I don't have when I see black people, I'm normally excited, black Americans, because I think, well, they're not going to be racist, they're not going to be discriminatory. I'm not normally looking out for racists. I don't do that because, again, so these people were very kind. The doctors, they're the ones who told the doctor that they apologized to me. They said, you don't belong here. And they were like, hey, that they're sorry that the judge has abused his power, that they have too much power. The judge, they lied to them. And these psychiatrists are dealing with people that are delusional and have mental illness all the time. So they don't know me. So it's what the lies that the judge and then the quack psychiatrist, what they wrote down. And it turns out that psychiatrist, I now saw him, the guy, the Dr. Mintz, I saw him there. Apparently they told me he works for them. So he works for the state. My public defender's office lied, right? They lied. He actually worked for the state. And I very filed a malpractice complaint against him. And but later on, right now, I'm trying to just focus on this case thing, but there's time for that. So that was the first instance, and there's more. And this video is 1 hour 30 minutes, and you see that's the way that the Judge Bonifant coerced the my public defender, my attorney, coerced them to sabotage me, to breach their duty of loyalty to me, and sell out to the state attorney, right? And so, anyway, my name is Olurotimi Osha. I'll keep you posted.